Welcome to this advanced shell scripting video titled How to Create a Shell Script Function Library. A shell script function library is a reusable source of functions, routines, and procedures which may be utilized by a script programmer. Shell script function libraries have the following advantages. Maintenance and updates of the functions in the library are easier, and that is because they only need to be performed on a single file instead of updating each standalone script that includes the function. Another advantage is that it saves memory. Functions are loaded only when they are needed, and many scripts can use a library function simultaneously. It saves on disk space. Many scripts can share a single copy of a library function on disk. But certainly the biggest advantage of a shell script function library is standardization of code. Every shell script that uses the library calls the same functions from the library. So the first step in creating a function library is to create a directory to contain the functions. This directory can exist anywhere. For example, each user can have their own function library. But if the functions are to be shared between multiple users, a centralized location may be desirable, such as under user local functions. For the purpose of this video, I'll create a directory for the function library under my home directory, and I'll name the directory functions. So I'm going to do a make dir /functions. And let's look at that. And we see that that directory now exists under my home directory. I'll change the permissions on this directory to make it publicly accessible so that others may use the functions from my function library, but I will make the permissions such that others cannot modify it or the scripts in the directory. So I'll do a chmod 755 ~functions, and we'll do an ls-ld on that again. And we see the permissions are read, write, execute for the owner, read, execute for group and other. Now I'll create the functions in the function library. To do this, I'll use an existing standalone shell script called displaymessage.ksh, which contains 3 functions. And so let's look at that now. We'll look at this is a shell script, a standalone shell script that already exists, so let's just take a look at it and see what's in it. And we can see that it has several functions in it. This first function displays a usage message, and the next function is a configuration function that configures the script and reads a configuration file. We see the configuration file here. And then the last function is a display message function. It displays a message from the user. And then here is where it's called. So this is a standalone shell script that has 3 functions in it, and then runs the display message function when the script is executed. So now then let's take a look at the configuration file. Remember, we have a configuration function that reads a configuration file. Well, this is the configuration file it reads. It just has a single variable definition in that configuration file. So in order to create the functions, now we created our function directory. So what I'm going to do now is copy each of these functions. I'm going to copy the standalone shell script /displaymessage.ksh, and I'm going to copy that to that function directory we created. And I'm going to copy it to a file name matching each of the functions that are within that standalone shell script. So we had a usage message display function, and then I'm going to copy that again to a file for the configuration function. There is a configure underscore display message function in that standalone shell script. And so then I'm also going to copy it to the display message function, to a file name called display message function. So we'll look in the function library now, and we see we have 3 files in that directory, and the 3 files are a copy of the display message.ksh file, each one named for the function that was in the file. So we have 3 different files with the functions, but they are simply copies of that standalone shell script. So now I'm going to edit each of these files and remove everything from the file except the function matching the file name. So this is the configure display message file, and so I'm going to remove everything from here except the definition of the configure display message function. So now the only thing left in this file is the function configure display message. So I'll go to the next one, and I will remove everything from here except the function for display message. So I removed everything from the top. I'm going to remove everything from the bottom. So now the only thing left in this file is the function display message. I removed the shebang line and everything. And so finally we have the usage message function. So I'm going to remove everything from that file except the function for usage display message. So now the only thing left in the file is that one function. So if we look at the 3 files again, here's the configure. It only has the configure function in it. Here's the display message function. The only thing in that is the display message function, and the usage message. And the only thing in that is the usage message function. So now I'll save each one of those. So now we can see the various file sizes and the various functions that were in that standalone shell script. And we've removed the shebang line from each one of those functions. So now I'm going to create a new shell script that will utilize functions from the library. So I'm going to go up one directory, and I'm going to create a file called temp.sh. And I'll put a shebang line in here, tell it to use Corn Shell 93, and I'm going to add an fpath variable. And I'm going to set that equal to ~/functions, which is my function library. I'm also going to add another directory to this called user local functions. So the fpath variable is used just like a normal path variable. So multiple function libraries can be listed, separated by a colon. And then what we're going to do now is then call the display message function from the function library, because it exists under ~functions. And then we'll also exit with the return code from the last executed command, which will be the display message function. And that is all we need in our new shell script, temp.sh. So you'll notice in this shell script that the display message uses a variable called a double quoted $@. And what that does is pass all of the command line arguments to the display message function, each command line argument double quoted. And when display message exits, the $? Variable contains the exit code from the last executed command. So I can exit from this temp.sh command with an exit $? So now let's make the temp.sh file or shell script executable, and we'll run it. So we'll do it chmod 755 ~/temp.sh, and so now let's run it. And we'll run it with a ? Command line argument. And what we see is that when we ran the script, temp.sh, it called the function display message, and when that display message function saw the dash question mark command line option, it causes the display message function to call the usage message function and displays the usage message. So both functions, the display message and usage message display message, exit in the function library, or exist in the function library. The temp.sh script calls display message, and display message calls the usage message function. So now let's verify the function configure display message is being called from the function library. We'll run the script again with no arguments, which will cause the function display message to call the configure message display function and read the display message config file. So first of all, let's look at the functions. And we can see the configure message function reads from a display message config file and then executes that file. And what that does, what is in that config file, is the definition of a message variable that says hello world. So if we run that now with no arguments, we see that it displays hello world. And so where it's getting that is from this display message config file. So we see that the temp.sh executed the display message function from the function library, which also executed the config function from the function library. So we can see that all three of the functions in the function library are being called when the script temp.sh is executed. The first function, display message, is called directly from temp.sh, and the other two functions are called from other functions in the function library. And that is the end of this advanced shell scripting video titled How to Create a Shell Script Function Library. If you would like to see other advanced shell scripting videos, then you can go to mountzia.com, and I'll show you that. mountzia.com, and you can go to download and scripts and go to corn, and there are lots and lots of scripts and videos out there that you can view. That is the end of this video. Thank you for listening and watching.